Let's take a look at the news. Always lots of tech news. So Trump has been running around doing these ICE raids with this woman from South Carolina they call ICE Barbie. And it's all for show. It's kind of interesting. Like, I think it's in Chicago. They had 400 agents and said they were going to catch 100 gang members, and they found one person to arrest. Some of the others found a few more than that, but they say if you take all the people that Trump has caught and deported in the time he's been in office, a couple of weeks, and assume the whole year is going to go that way, you'll end up with half as many as the number Biden deported. So, like most everything Trump does, it's for show, to make a spectacle on TV, and the reality doesn't really justify the hype. So the latest iPhone update, of course, brings Apple Intelligence, their AI feature, and people say not only is it kind of useless and not worth the bother, but it uses up 7 gigabytes of storage on your phone. So you might want to turn it off just to save the storage. So Idaho has banned public clinics from distributing the coronavirus vaccine based on vaccine disinformation. And what they did was find a doctor who has been banned from practicing medicine in his home state of Washington for spreading vaccine disinformation and cite him as an authority. And this is just what RFK Jr. does. RFK Jr. has said the COVID vaccine is the most deadly thing ever, and there's not a single vaccine that's at all valuable for anybody. And it's complete garbage. And he, like the Supreme Court justices that Trump appointed, he just perjured himself in front of Congress, lying and saying he'll support the vaccine, just like they all lied and said they would support Roe versus Wade. They appear in Congress, they lie, they get approved by a bunch of Republicans that are afraid for their lives, so they have to vote to support all of Trump's nominees, whether they're good or bad, because the Trump mob threatens them and their family with violence. And then they get in. So, we're a fascist regime led by violence and intimidation and fear, and that's what all this is intended to provoke. However, the Democrats are pushing back. The lawsuits are amazing. I've got a website here someplace of all the lawsuits that are currently underway, and it is pretty impressive. There's like 20 of them and all that. Let me check for comments. All right. Anyway, so Elon Musk is trying to do to the United States government what he did to Twitter. He's trying to fire almost everybody to save money. And of course, I do think this is a fundamental issue in America. Our government runs at a huge deficit, and the Democrats would like to return to the formula that worked in the 1950s, where you actually tax rich people in order to get enough money for the government to provide services to the poor people. But the Republicans, especially Musk, have an alternative solution. Just cancel all support to all the people that need help. Just let them die so you can cut taxes on the rich and have essentially no government at all. And that's their plan. They want neo-feudalism, where everybody lives in company towns. This is what Curtis Yarvin predicted. This proposed. This is what was built in Project 2025, and it's exactly what Trump is implementing after promising on the campaign trail that he wouldn't do Project 2025 and didn't know anything about it. That was garbage. And so they're trying to turn America into a feudal society where tech CEOs will run basically the states like company towns, and everybody will just serve them and contribute to their wealth like feudal lords. And so he's accessing the Treasury Department records, but the judge is not blocking him. I mean, what Musk is doing is illegal and unauthorized, and Trump doesn't have the ability to do it. And this is a very nice article on Politico talking about the time that most greatly resembles what we have now, which is the McCarthy Red Scare in the 40s and 50s. And they talk about it. This is the last time a president purged the bureaucracy, when they fired a whole bunch of people from the government, and it led to decades of disaster, and it was just like now, based on complete lies and paranoia, claiming that a whole bunch of government workers were communists. Anyway, it's very interesting to read, very good to learn about this history. So people who get too upset about what's happening now and say our democracy is coming to an end, it might be, but in many ways what's going on now is something we have faced before. We've had division this great in the 70s over the Vietnam War. I lived through it. We had a generation gap then that was as big and violent and angry as the red-blue gap now. And we've had certainly fascists in power before, and extreme fascism before the start of the Second World War. So, I think we're living through the beginning of the Third World War. And this is a lot like what happened last time. America was on a knife's edge on which side we would be in that world war, either on Hitler's side or the other side. And right now, we have a Nazi government, which puts us on Putin's side. But it may not last. In fact, I think they may destroy themselves. I've seen statistics that suggest that already, even after 2 or 3 weeks in office, Trump is beginning to alienate some of his own Republicans because the people there's Trump cultists that will just worship him and believe everything he does is right. But the people that made him win the election are the small group in the middle, something like 5 or 10% of Americans that can swing between Democrat and Republican. And they swung to Trump for reasons like they thought grocery prices were too high or something like that, or they were offended by the Democrats defending trans rights or something like that. But the fact is they're not really on board with all this Project 2025 crazy stuff. And so I think Trump pushing so hard on things that are not popular will probably kick him out, and then we may have a Democratic regime again instead of the current fascist regime, which I much prefer to have the Democrats in there. So I think it is interesting to listen to the All In podcast. The All In podcast is for Silicon Valley tech investors, and they're from the PayPal mafia. They're Elon Musk's buddies, and so they're totally involved with Doge. And even have David Sachs calls in from Washington. He's now the official AI czar. He's made it into the Trump cabinet, essentially, and he's very close to Elon Musk and Doge. So you hear the inside story of what they think they're doing and how they think they're saving America. So I recommend listening to this to understand what it looks like from the inside, but remember that almost every word they say is a lie. Everything they claim about how they're saving so much money and there's so much corruption is wildly exaggerated. So to balance it, take a look at some other sources, like here is the Washington Post has a list of the wildly inaccurate claims they make about USAID spending. They claim there's all this corruption and all this money going to bribe media organizations. That was the most amazing part. They've signed some money, which is just being spent to subscribe to news organizations and say, there they are, bribing news organizations to push left-wing agendas. We should have the news organizations completely independent and away from politics. And then, as you know, Trump is pushing very hard to force news organizations to report what he says. He is suing people who dared to publish a poll that said he wouldn't win Idaho by very much. He is talking about suing and jailing Jimmy Kimmel off TV. So he totally wants to control the press. And then they say the great idea is Trump's sovereign wealth fund, where the government will buy TikTok and run it. So the government would absolutely own the number one source of news for people under the age of 25 in America. So it is, what they claim is amazingly slanted from their perspective on the right, where they think, whenever Elon Musk says free speech, he means he gets to say whatever he wants and you can't contradict him. And whenever these people say they want an independent media, they mean they want a corporate right-wing propaganda media. So you have to understand that. Anyway, let me check for comments in Twitch. Nothing new. All right, well, that's enough of this. I'm going to stop the